Hey everybody, welcome to the SPYPOINT podcast. I'm your host, Brian Stevens, and I am joined today by Josh Lantz from Traditions Media. And today we're going to talk about fishing gear, and a whole lot of stories and really have a good time. You know, this time of the season is here for a lot of us. And so before we jump in, I just want to remind everybody to, rate, review, subscribe wherever you consume podcasts. It just helps other listeners, find us and grow our community. So, Josh, let's jump into it, my friend. How you doing?
Right on, Brian. Let's light this candle,
Let's
brother.
do it,
I'm doing great, thanks. I just got back from the Bassmaster Classic on Monday, and
nice.
You know what it's like being gone from work for a few days. But I'll tell you, it was enjoyable being a 3D being for a few days, out talking with anglers and outdoors people again. So.
And just that human interaction, is just nice to get back to that. So how was the tournament? How did it go?
Yeah, so I was at the expo down working for one of my clients, which is St. Croix Rod, and talking to a lot of people. I was able to follow along. A couple of the vendors across the aisle had some live TV going, but I didn't get to any weigh-ins or out to the water or anything like that. But it was tough sledding for those fishermen this year. I've never fished Ray Roberts before, but
okay.
I talked to a lot of local, folks
Yeah.
from the Fort Worth area, anglers coming into the Classic Expo, and they just all kind of, raised their eyebrows when you talk about Ray. I guess it's a tough lake to fish anyway.
Got it.
And then they had some funky high water and all kinds of things. But, there were plenty of pros, a few pros, that first day, even second day that didn't weigh illegal fish. So that just blows my mind. These guys
really.
I know a lot of them, and they're, literally the best bass anglers on earth. So it was tough.
But still, you know what, a great experience. And like you said, to get to rub shoulders and talk with people and, interact, as things get back to, hopefully normal here, I know had to be a good thing. So, well, Josh, why don't you, before we get into some of our topics, tell people a little bit about your background, Traditions Media, and you let everybody know a little bit more about your story.
Sure. So I'll just start with my agency. Anybody that's in, our fishing industry, certainly, and a lot of, anglers and consumers might even get our communications. We send out a lot of emails. That's our job. Our job is, to tell good, compelling hunting and fishing stories, ultimately let, anglers and hunters know about, new products, what's coming, what's available, that type of thing. So we're not a slick and glossy agency. We're not the creative agency that does videos and photos, things like that. We really are storytellers. So I'm not sure how old of a guy you are, Brian, but I always equate it to, when I was young, growing up, I would get Field and Stream or
Yep.
Sports Afield or any of the fishing magazines, and I wanted to see like what are these guys using? What kind of bow is Chuck Adams shooting these days?
Absolutely.
And I think that's still there. Obviously, media is changing, but you look at our industry. People that consume media. There's more media outlets than ever. On the digital side, there's plenty of fishing websites and hunting websites, and they all need good content.
Yep.
So that's my job. That's what Traditions Media does. We've got a group of about 6 people. We've been at it for 12 years. We're fortunate to work with some of the best brands in the industry. I always say in PR, the worst thing you can do is try to make a C or a D product seem like an A product. So we don't even put ourselves in that situation. Yep. So we can stay authentic that way. But just really blessed to work with a lot of great companies and come into contact with, with the end consumers of our material. We make it real easy for editors and writers, publishers to have up-to-date and current information about products and some good hunting and fishing stories too. So I'll leave it at that for Traditions Media. Myself, I've been a passionate, angler my whole life, hunter, since high school. I'm 51 now, so that's been quite a few years. I've been a lot of things, but one thing I've been consistently most of my adult life is a writer.
Okay.
So working with Traditions is a good fit with me. I think I sold my first story in 1994. So that was several years ago. I freelanced, was editor of a little tabloid called it was Raghorn News Outdoors, which became Indiana Outdoor News. I did that for almost 15 years. And, that's when I really hit my stride as a writer. When you start to see copy from other writers and you have to edit it. That's when I really hit my stride and became kind of a, prolific writer like, the Mark Strands and Dave Mulls and, a lot of the other people that I looked up to, growing up in this industry. So, what else? I was a fly fishing guide for 15 years.
Okay.
On the St. Joseph River here in Southwest Michigan, and did some musky stuff on the northern lakes. Really enjoyed that, Brian. I had to give that
How
up.
could you not?
Yeah. I've got one of my kids is graduating from high school this year, and I've got another one that's becoming a sophomore. So they kind of hit a certain age, and it was hard, to continue with the guiding thing.
Sure.
But man, I tell you what, you want to learn something about customer service, no matter what industry you're in, take somebody fishing for a living and try to survive at it and be good at it and have a good reputation and everything else. So, 15 years of that, it was a great experience.
Sure.
Just in terms of being able to read people and take care of people, which is what pretty much all of us do, no matter what our job is. So yeah. That's kind of my background. I'm a homebody hunter these days. I've been fortunate, I did TV for a number of years. I've been fortunate to travel a lot of places on this earth to hunt and fish, but more than anything else, I love my turkey hunting in the spring and my deer hunting in the fall, here in northern Indiana and Southwest Michigan and my local fishing. I got a little jet boat and I run about 160 miles of the St. Joe River. Kind of smallmouth is what my passion is around home. So
you got a lot to keep you busy.
Me. Yeah.
Let me ask you this: what favorite of all the places you traveled? Obviously, your home base is something you treasure and you cherish. But coolest place you've ever fished and the coolest place you've ever traveled to hunt.
Well, I'll start with hunting and, Zimbabwe, there's no doubt, a lot of people, that are serious about hunting make the trip to Africa sooner or later. And it's a wonderful experience. And, I think about where I went, I was I went to Zimbabwe twice in the early 2000s, and it was at the peak of, the Robert Mugabe days, so there was a lot of, corruption and shady things going in with the government. But our PH, the outfitter we worked with, he had an air service, so he whisked us out of the airport and we were in camp, without spending a lot of time and, traveling checkpoints and all that kind of stuff. But Zimbabwe, Botswana, Namibia, a lot of those places I call the real Africa. Not against South Africa. There's a lot of beautiful places, in South Africa, and there's some wild country there too. But, you step off of that rover, on a hunting session, where these are wild animals that aren't hated and they don't necessarily know what you are.
Yep.
Just that danger aspect, just combined with the feast for the senses, just such beautiful country. So yeah, Zimbabwe and Africa would be my number one hunting destination.
How about fishing?
It's hard to beat Alaska, Brian.
Okay.
I've been there several times. Like Africa, it's what gets described as a real sticky place. Once people go there, they want to go back. There's just so much to see. My daughter's graduating from high school this year, and that's actually taking her up to
very nice.
A few days on the peninsula here the beginning of August, and we're going to go visit a buddy of mine that's got a place on Kodiak Island for a few days. So it's just wild country.
Yep.
And that wilderness, that wildness, that's what I crave. But I would put two of those two locations up as my favorites.
Okay. Very nice. Very nice. All right. So let's shift gears and talk a little bit of fishing right now. So I'm going to ask you, from your perspective, what are some of the trends that are happening right now? Some industry-wide trends in angling and fishing, and what are some of the shifts you're seeing over the last few years? And, some of it may be related to COVID, some of it may not be related, but just, walk us through some of those industry trends.
Yeah, sure. You said COVID. I'll start there. As horrible as an experience it's been for so many people in the world to have lived through what we lived through, the past 16 months or so, the silver lining has been, for our industry, we have more people outside. I think the American Sport Fishing Association has estimated that we have somewhere between 8 and 10 new and what they call reactivated anglers, anglers that haven't purchased a license for several years, back in our folds. That's really something to celebrate and talk about, and the question now as an industry is, okay, as things open up and get more back to normal, what do we do to retain those folks, to keep a fishing rod in their hands? So there's all kinds of interesting conversations and strategies that are being talked about, there. And certainly the Recreational Boating and Fishing Foundation, ASA, and some other groups, they're studying this every day, and they're making it real easy for these folks to continue fishing. But, I think from what I do as an outdoor communicator, I think there's an opportunity for, those of us who make our living in the outdoors and promoting the outdoors and fishing in one way or another. Boy, what a chance we have now to dust off, some of the more remedial stuff, because a lot of these new anglers don't know where to start.
Sure.
And you watch any fishing show on TV today, any, magazine article and in any fishing magazine or website, and there is, there's some people that are talking about some advanced things, and I get it. Like, for somebody who's done it for a number of years, that's kind of where we go. But I would encourage anybody, in this industry who communicates to, back up and let's talk about how to tie a Palomar knot and an improved clinch knot.
Yeah.
Let's talk about, why you wouldn't, necessarily want to use an ultralight, power spinning rod for, throwing water, throwing a topwater bass bait, because that's the kind of thing that's happening. And, the cool thing is, e-commerce is great. It makes people, it's very convenient for people to buy things, but what an opportunity for, the mom and pop tackle shops and stuff too, because it gives somebody, an angler that walks into their store, answers to those questions and takes time to listen to them and what they're going through. And that's something that e-commerce is, never going to be able to duplicate.
No, that's right. And it's sometimes it's that first experience, you take the time, you invest in some tackle equipment, and then, you go out and use it and it doesn't work like you see on TV or you hear your buddies. And so you put it down and you don't do it again. And like you said, the e-commerce, you can get a product, but you can't get the advice. And so the mom and pop, or I'm sure the content you guys have through your digital platforms, just to teach people the basic things, so that way they stay engaged and have a good experience.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up, Brian, because you're absolutely right. And we talk about it all the time. You're going to take somebody out, into the outdoors for an experience, hunting, fishing, shooting sports, whatever. Boy, let's do everything we can to make sure they're comfortable. If they're kids, make sure they're comfortable. Make sure they feel a part of the experience, have a good experience, and shooting sports, hunting as well. Things go boom when we go hunting or when we go to the shooting range. Make sure they've got good, good ear protection, like the best. Double them up, so they're not intimidated by that guy that's 4 aisles over, sighting in his 308.
Exactly.
So great point.
So let's talk about some of the new gear, some of the new maybe technologies, some of the cool things that you're seeing, in the industry that may be out now or maybe coming out with some of the new expos or trade shows or things that people may have an opportunity to go visit, this summer or this upcoming fall.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll start with fishing, and from being in this industry, you can go to, our trade shows, which are SHOT Show for shooting sports and hunting. And you can go to the ICast show, which is the trade show on the fishing tackle side. man, sometimes you really have to look to see something, that is, really new and,
Yeah.
is going to help people have a better experience. And that's what I always look for, in a product is this going to help somebody have more success? Just like you said, make sure somebody has a good experience outdoors. Those are the products I try to point people to. I've been fortunate to work. I mentioned St. Croix. Traditions has had a great relationship with them, for the past several years. It's an incredible company, Brian. They've been making rods in Park Falls, Wisconsin for 75 years, have been owned by the same family,
Oh,
the
wow.
same family for the
Okay.
past 45 years. So I use them as one example
Sure.
on the fishing side. That's what drives them. Whether, an angler, buys one of their, $100 rods or one of their $680 rods, they're getting a tool that's received the same amount of care and attention, when it was crafted, that's going to, make them ultimately feel better about the fishing experience that they have. So I'll go into bass fishing. One of the things that I've seen, swim baits. People are crazy about swim baits. I haven't thrown a lot of them myself. I'm more of a finesse guy.
Okay.
But you've got, major manufacturers that are, responding to that with, different reels, different rods. So that's been interesting to watch. Now I go back to St. Croix. They've got some swim bait rods, and I'll throw an 8-ounce swim bait, which some of these guys out in the California Delta are using in other parts of the country as well. So swim baits, spy baits to me is kind of an interesting one. If you haven't seen a spy bait, it's kind of like an underwater prop bait, jerk bait type thing.
Yep.
And, people are having success with that. So that's kind of new. Beyond that, I don't really think of anything that comes to mind. Electronics are fun to watch, fishing electronics. Certainly, there's all the live sonar options now, which if your podcast listeners, haven't checked, out what Lantz and Garmin and even Humminbird are doing now with their live sonar views. I always try in the PR business not to use the word revolutionary or game changing, just because I hate the way it sounds. But that live sonar is definitely both.
Yeah,
of
no
those.
question. Well, I've been on the ocean and then on the water down in the Keys, several times the last 2-3 months, and got some buddies that have that equipment in some of our boats. And it truly, it's remarkable, the revolution of that technology and allowing you to just see things you just couldn't see before. Doesn't necessarily make it easier. You still got to know how to fish. You still got to know what bait, weather impacts things, but it helps you have more information and intel to make decisions. And so, I'm all for that. And, like it, it's funny. You talk about some of these baits and things. I had the opportunity to grow up in Florida. Every day after school, I'd go fish Lake Tahoe, and I'd do a variety of, fishing and stuff. And sometimes the old school stuff works good too. An old Texas rig, worm, spinner baits,
absolutely,
little jigs for speck, and a lot of times that I think, what I learned over the years growing up fishing in Florida was just knowing what baits to use when and what time of the year. And so, and that a lot of times, if you can figure that out, and sometimes, again, it's the basic stuff that a number of baits will work if you use them the right time of day and or the right time of the year based on what those fish are doing. And so whether it's in Florida or up by you or in the Midwest or other places, and I think if people have the opportunity to find that in, video content or somebody local or a friend, that in itself will help people enjoy fishing even more, because you're catching fish. And even if you just hook a fish and you have that fight, there's something about that fight too,
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, everything is old is new again when it comes to fishing for a whole lot of people that are fishing, picking up fishing rods for the first time or the first time time. So, yeah. So you being down in Florida, we were chatting, a little bit before, but so what's going on down where you fish? You were just down in the Keys?
Yeah, we were just down in the Keys. And so May and June are really good for tarpon and, mahi. And, so we will typically do, a lot of mahi May and June. We do a lot of spear fishing, and we bow fish mahi actually in May and June, which not a lot of people do that. We go about 30 miles off of Key West, and we'll troll and get some schoolies, and we bow fish mahi. It's one of the coolest things that we do all year, and we film it both underwater and above water, and it's a lot of fun. And then I've got a buddy who's a backcountry guide back there, and so that late May, June is really good for tarpon. Encourage anybody to go down there and book that, because we were right off of the harbor of Key West, and got out in the boat about 4 o'clock. And within 2 hours, we had 12 tarpon, 2-3 hours hooked, and landed about 6 of them, with my 2 boys. And I caught my biggest tarpon, 110-pound fish, and hour and a half flight, and it was just great. And then the next day we went out to the Marquesas, and, we're catching permit, mutton snapper, and tarpon back there. So that's just the world that I grew up in and love, but I've done a ton of bass fishing and, other kind of fishing, down in Florida. And, I've taken my boys to Texas. That's another place love to fish. We went out down in South Texas and Lake Amistad. I don't know if you've ever been down there and fished that. Very crystal clear water, a lot of top water action. I got a buddy who's a Bassmaster Pro that, he guides down there. And just, again, I love doing it with my boys. They love fishing. And I just enjoyed, doing it and being a part of it with them.
Yeah, no, that makes it so much better. I'm in the same boat, Brian. I got my 15-year-old is totally ate up with it. Both my kids like to fish, but I've been gone too much, and we haven't been able to get out and chase smallmouth yet. But that's what we do around here.
Yeah,
a lot of river smallmouth, a lot of finesse plastics and chatterbaits, and some top water when the conditions are right. So. Yep. I don't know if people know, but like some of the rivers, certainly in Illinois, but the St. Joseph River where I live at, it's a wonderful smallmouth fishery.
Okay.
Back when I used to guide, I mean, we have days when, each of your clients, on a full day trip would catch 40 or 50 fish. So that makes it pretty good for tips.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So when I teach people fly fishing, I like to take them on the river for smallmouth, because they can have some success pretty easily. So
okay, that's good. I'm just going to take a break right here and just ask anybody who's listening, post, comment, anything related to fishing this time of year that you're doing, any part of the country, if you got any pictures or just any tips for anybody. So, listen, I do a lot down in Florida, but don't have a lot of experience in the Midwest or other parts of the country. So share some comments and stories, and just, let everybody know what you guys are doing.
Fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's shift gears and talk about, your favorite type of fishing. Obviously, I can tell smallmouth may be that type of fishing for you. That's just, your passion, but anything else that you truly love doing that may not get to do it a lot, but you truly love doing it outside of your home base of smallmouth fishing.
Yeah, you mentioned tarpon, Brian. To me, that's the ultimate game.
Okay.
Big tarpon. I've been a fly fisherman, my entire adult life. And, people hear fly fishing and they think, oh, well, that sounds fun. It's, it's romantic, it's relaxing, it's this and that. But boy, it sure is complicated. I think, a lot of that's a mess. I like to fly fish because, sometimes it's the best way to catch them.
Yep.
It's a different way to cast, but the presentation, I'll give you for an example. I fly fish for muskie quite a bit, and the waters that I fish in northern Indiana, they're highly pressured. There's boats and jet skis and all kinds of things running around, tons of anglers. And when you have pressured fish, muskies or otherwise, you throw them something that, can't be duplicated with a casting or a spinning rod, you just up your chances,
sure,
for success. And that's just what fly fishing does. I mean, you can fish a sinking fly line with a fly that's naturally buoyant, and make that thing sit there and do things that you can't duplicate anywhere else. So I love muskie fishing. I love my tarpon fishing. My go-tos are definitely, river smallmouth that I mentioned. I'm totally ate up with that. And then steelhead too. We've got a great steelhead fishery where I'm at in Southwest Michigan. So, spring, winter and fall, we've got steelhead opportunities. So,
okay. Let me ask you, have you ever been down to Florida, Central or South Florida, and done any, spring, bed shiner bass fishing down there, those big largemouth?
No,
you got to do it, my man.
But I've got a fellow Michigander named Joe Baylog who lives down there, and that's his thing. I mean, people, some of your listeners have probably read some of his articles, but he's a big bass guy, and he uses and live bait. But no, I've been wanting to try that for sure.
You got to get down. What's just nice about it that time of year, you got those big females and those, bass that are hitting the shiners, and you can just have a lot of fun. And, look, we're all catch and release, for those big fish like that, but you can just catch some really big bass that you normally wouldn't catch that time of year. And it's just a ton of fun, and the cattails and the lily pads. And, I grew up on Lake Toho in Central Florida, and, we've caught a lot of fish. And go down to Lake Okeechobee. I was born down there, and just so much opportunity, year round, but especially in the spring, man, it can be a lot of fun.
Sign me up, brother.
All right.
Where are we going to go?
Come on.
Let's do a giveaway with one of your listeners. You can
That's right.
You can take them, and I'll probably need to go too.
You got to write a story about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, good. Well, anything else, as far as, just content and tips that you would suggest that people, do and or research? Just, you talk about tying knots, you talk about, just techniques, but are there some, things that you guys have that you can point people to, not only about telling the story, but just about, how to get started into the industry, or into the sport, and just help them get up the curve a little bit faster?
There's a lot of content out there, YouTube, digital. Some of it's good, some of it's horrible too. Like I watch some things that makes me, but nonetheless, those resources are there.
Yep.
So if you're new, and I think a lot of people these days, that's where they get a lot of their information. I know I do. Like I had an error code on my clothes dryer just last week. So what's the first thing I do? I'm like, Whirlpool E40. What does that mean?
No question.
So I think by and large, it's a great resource. So, look there, definitely back to what I said earlier though, especially when you're ready to buy equipment. I'm in the business of selling, hunting and fishing gear. That's what I do. So a lot of my content is written that way. It's not misleading or anything else. It's just, there's always brand mentions and things like that. And so does everybody else, that does PR in our industry. So go to your dealers, they and fishing guides, those are two great resources for somebody new to the sport, especially if you're from out of town, you're going somewhere, you didn't bring gear or whatever, man, call up a local fishing guide. And they will have the right equipment for what you're going after. They'll show you, how to do it. And they're not biased. Their job is to help you catch fish. And I say the same thing about shops. If you're a tackle store or a retailer, a small retailer that's in business these days, you're taking care of your customers, because it's a tough, it's a tough business. It's tough to compete with the big boxes and everything. So if you see a mom and pop archery shop or fishing shop, you can be pretty darn sure that when you go in there, you're going to get really solid advice. And I think those are the two places that I would look, if I were new to the outdoors.
No, that's great advice. And what I would ask everybody who's listening, if you have some examples of some of those local shops and dealers that have just, great customer service, want to help, and, give you knowledge, post it on there. Let us know where they're at in your state or local area. because, like you said, that's the thing, is just having those places you can go to. And to me, the best places that I'm so loyal to, that, even at this point in my career, that if I can get a little bit of advice and they can help me, that's where I'm going to go spend my money. That's where I want to go and give them, even if it's a little bit extra cost. That's the type of people that I want to support. And it's because of the knowledge and the desire to help me be more successful in the outdoors. So again, let's celebrate that and, list some of those big, large, small, wherever in your local community. So that's great advice. The other thing that, baffles me in a good way, Josh, is, well, I watch my boys, they watch so many fishing videos, and these young kids that are really good.
Yeah.
They're impressive of how good of a fisherman they are. And look, I thought I was a pretty good fisherman growing up down in Central Florida. These kids, in both, young boys, men, girls, whatever, are really skilled, and they love to fish. And so I love to see that. They're doing their YouTube videos, and my boys watch it, and they talk a lot about what they do, where they go. So I don't know if you're probably seeing the same thing, but I love seeing that in that industry.
I do too. And, just to piggyback on what you said, the great thing about it for somebody that's new, and I kind of poo-pooed some of the YouTube stuff that's out there, but if you're watching somebody on YouTube and they're flat out catching fish, it's not BS at that point.
No.
You can see what they're using. If they're telling you what they're using, it's real. So that's a really great point. And man, I gotta say, I watch more YouTube hunting and fishing than I do, on television.
Well, I do the same thing. I mean, we stopped doing television years ago and do, all social and media as well. So that's it. And like you said, you'll find those that are not gimmicks and are the ones that truly have, you can watch the first 5 minutes and you're going to know if these people are legit fishermen and how they do it. So, anyways, I just think that's another good resource of, just learning from some of the quality fishermen, young and old, that know what they're doing. You're going to see it and you can learn from it wherever they're fishing at. And, and the other thing I would encourage, and I get a little guilty of this, is being willing to explore new places, and fish new types of fish. I've never caught a smallmouth, believe it or not. And, doing that, just going out and trying new things, I think is good as well.
Yeah. Just to dovetail into that, I'm not sure how much time we got here, Brian, but, kayaks, that's one of the reasons kayaks are so popular right now. Number one, they cross over with people, who have a general interest in the outdoors anyhow. But as far as fishing, it opens up so much water. It doesn't cost you any money in gas. What you spend hauling it around in the bed of your truck, you can put it in about anywhere. So, that's definitely a trend that I neglected to talk about with kayak angling.
Do you guys write about that? Do you guys write about some of that?
We do. Hobie is one of our clients.
Okay.
And, they pioneered the first pedal
drive
I know
exactly.
For kayaks, and are still, one of the lead players in the game, make a great product. But just that independence that a kayak gives you, and you're so close to the water too. I mean, you interact with everything that's going around you. You don't seem like you're that much higher up in a bass boat or an aluminum multi-species boat. But I tell you, being right down there on the water, man, you know what's going on.
Well, what's so neat about that is, I talk a lot about Florida, but that's my home base. I mean, I see a lot of individuals kayak fishing with those Hobie kayaks, in some of the bass lakes, in intercoastal red fishing, trout fishing. It's huge in Florida, and even offshore. I've got some buddies who go offshore and they'll catch snapper and grouper, off some of the reefs, especially down in South Florida, where you're not, too far off of, the different reefs and things and structure. So that's another great way to fish. And I love it just because there's no sound. A lot of these fish that get pressure, they get sensitive to some sound. And so you can ease up on some of these big fish and catch them just because they don't even know you're there. So that's a great new way to fish. that, I will definitely be doing a little bit more as I get down to Florida and move down there in the next few years.
Cool, man. Yeah. Absolutely. I'm looking forward to that too.
So let's talk about Traditions Media and some of the different ways that people can. Is it email only, or do you guys have your own YouTube? Do you have a website? How can people find some of this content and these stories that you're writing about?
Yeah, so our content that we put out, Brian, it's written for the consumer, but it's packaged and distributed to the industry in a way that makes, those website editors, magazine editors, freelancers, we make it really easy for them to pick it up and then put it in whatever their media product is.
Okay.
So we're not distributing direct to consumer. So that's how it kind of gets spread out there. Certainly if they want to read any of our stuff, they can Google, Traditions Media, but, we've got a website as well, traditionsmedia.com. We've got, Instagram and Facebook where, we try to keep up with the posting of our content, but all of our press releases and fishing and hunting stories, are at traditionsmedia.com, and people can kind of look there, see if there's anything that's interesting, to them, particularly scroll through it pretty fast. So, but there's there's years of information there. Sure. So I appreciate you asking.
No, absolutely. And are there certain journals and or affiliations that you guys, really partner with on a regular basis that people can check out that, might be, a few of those, companies that you provide content on a regular basis, that you would encourage people to go check out as well?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Again, we give those editors and publishers and freelancers the opportunity to pick and choose the stories and content that they think is most, germane or interesting to their readers at the time. So, we have a lot of media partners. I call my clients, the companies that we work for, our real clients are the outdoor communicators, the editors, publishers, website, owners. So our job is to get them that content, and it's been literally over the past 12 years peppered in just about every title that's out there.
Got it. Okay. Well, good. Well, listen, Josh, I really appreciate today, in the conversation, and encourage everybody to go check out Traditions Media and all of that content and get outdoors and start doing some fishing this summer and lead it into the fall. And hopefully we'll be talking about some fall big game and deer hunting, our next episode, Josh.
Oh my God. Thanks for the opportunity, Brian. Yeah, I know deer hunting is going to be here before we know it. I don't even want to say it as exciting as it is, because we got a lot of summer to enjoy. So appreciate the opportunity, and everybody be safe out there. Have a great time.
Absolutely. And look, everybody, remember to rate, review, subscribe wherever you get podcasts. And also follow us on all the social media channels on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and just search SPYPOINT. So that's it for today. I really appreciate it. Josh, again, thank you very much.
Thanks for everything that you and SPYPOINT do too, Brian.
Roger. Take care.